So the Raceparts 750 Formula Championship up next for round 5 of 12 in their championship this season. We're coming up towards the halfway mark already this weekend. And the Raceparts 750 Formula Championship, of course, the oldest championship in the UK, if not the world. 750 Formula inaugurated in 1949, 1 year before the Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship was inaugurated. So we've got one up on them after their 1,000 race celebrations early on in the year, a little bit older than the Formula 1 World Drivers' Championship. But this always provides really good racing, and something a bit different from almost anything else now in UK club racing, in that it is something that is very much aimed at the amateur designer, constructor, engineer, who will probably drive their own car as well, and it really sort of chimes well with what the 750 Motor Club was all about when it was inaugurated 80 years ago now, in 1939. It was for the impecunious motoring enthusiast, as it was pitched at the time, and a lot of the cars that people had at that time were the Austin 7, and the early 750 Formula cars, hence the name, were based around the 747cc engine that went into the Austin 7. Subsequently, these sports racing cars have had Reliant engines in, 850cc units, and for about the last 15 years or so now, they've had the Fiat Fire engine in, the kind of engine that went into the car, Fiat Pandas. It seems a bit unlikely, but it does work, and it does provide for a great racing formula. There's a lot of freedom within the regulations. It is a slicks and wings category, probably just about in slicks territory again, I would think, from what those drivers were saying in the previous race. The design of the suspension is free, the choice of brakes is free. They have to use the 4-speed plus reverse or 5-speed transmission. They use Yokohama Control slick tyres, but free wets if they are on wet tyres. And as I say, this is a championship that really does appeal to the amateur designer, constructor and engineer as well as racer. Championship coming into this weekend is headed by the man that leads or was the reigning champion I should say, Mark Glover, on 97 points. He's won 3 out of the 4 races so far this year, and he was second in the other, so just 3 points dropped so far this season. Peter Bowe, former champion, he's in second place on 82 points. He's had the one win that came in the opening meeting of the season at Brands Hatch, and then he had a couple of seconds as well, one at Brands and one at Mallory. Other podium finishes this year have gone to Bill Rutter. He's had 3 third places, on his way 74 points, third in the championship. Bob Simpson's had a 3rd place at Mallory, on his way to 4th place in the points on 65, and Ollie Collett, who was 2nd at Mallory Park in the previous round of the championship, he is on 53 points. So the top 5 in the championship, all having had podium finishes during the course of this year so far. Green flag waved at the back. These cars do get a green flag lap before the race gets underway, but much entertainment expected to be provided from the Raceparts 750 Formula Championship. Just looking down onto the track, I think everyone that is expected to be there is. I can't see any gaps on the grid, I don't think, and he's just practicing his counting to check if they are in fact all there, and he gives me the thumbs up. Pole position is going to be Ollie Collett there in the Race Kits Falcon. That's the car with the green livery down the side of it, and it's in the Carbinium Engineering entered Race Kits Falcon. Carbinium Engineering supporting the racing this weekend as well, as we get into the countdown procedure before the green flag lap gets underway. So Ollie Collett, man that was 2nd last time out at Mallory Park, is on pole position, and alongside him is Bill Cowley, who's returning for the first time this season at one of his local championships. He's from long local circuits even. He's from Doncaster, so just down the A1. And Bill, who who's been a regular in this championship for a few years, back out this weekend. It'll be very interesting to see what he can do. Green flag then is waved, and a final chance for these drivers to see what kind of grip levels might be offered by the 2.1 mile Croft circuit after that rain, and now hopefully it's dried out again. I guess there might be some drivers who have been a bit cautious and gone onto wet, but we'll see. Here's the grid then. On the front row it's 31 Ollie Collett, alongside him number 2 Bill Cowley. On the second row it's the one car, the reigning champion, the championship leader Mark Glover, Peter Bove, who's second in the championship next to him. Alex Bagnall, first time out in the Ingham, he lines upon the inside of row 3 next to the very experienced Chris Goff. Martin Kemp, despite some problems in qualifying, he's there on 7th, alongside the man who's been racing in this championship for more than 50 years now, Bob Simpson. On to row 5, Rod Hill had a very good meeting at Mallory Park. He there is on 9th on the grid even, next to Bill Rutter in the number 40 car, the man who's had 3 podiums this year. Dan Welsh and Conway Dorr on row 6, Conway Dorr in the centre, Hugh Davis and Paul Morris row 7, and it's Nigel Terry in the ex-Dave Robson SDAR 83 that rounds out this 15-car field. And Andy, you and I have certainly commentated on some very entertaining 750 Formula Championship races in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. More than I can remember, really, but we've seen some great races at Donington Park over the years, Cadwell Park, even a circuit that you wouldn't imagine you can have a huge amount of side-by-side racing at, but the 750 Formula Championship certainly managed to produce just that. 3 former champions on the grid, of course, for this race as well, with the return of Bill Cowley this weekend. Great to have Bill in the Cowley back on the grid as well. Second on the grid for the 2017 champion, reigning champion Mark Glover third, and Peter Bove. It's been, would you believe, 11 years since he won the championship back in 2008, or just over 10 years, I suppose. And yeah, great to see that there's still great strength in depth in this grid. They do produce good racing. There may be technically a slicks and wings formula, but the downforce levels created aren't enough to create this sort of dirty air issue that we have in some slicks and wings formula, so you can still run nose to tail, you can still run closely together, and because of the great variety of shape and size of cars, certain cars will have different strengths and weaknesses around the lap as well, so it produces really exciting racing, and I'm sure that this 13-minute plus 1 lap encounter will be no different.
There's Bill Cowley then, in the Cowley Mark IV, originally designed by his granddad many, many years ago now. And Bill racing all these years later. He was the champion in 2017, runner-up on 3 occasions as well since 2014. So Bill, very quick, but possibly his car isn't always quite as quick as some of the more modern machinery, but he drives it as hard, if not harder, than anybody else. So he lines up alongside Ollie Collett on the front row of the grid. And it's Mark Glover in another Race Kits Falcon and the Derby of Peter Bove. The orange car on row 2. Revs rise, lights go out, away they go. And a good start by Bill Cowley it was from the front of the grid. He swept immediately in front of Ollie Collett. Peter Bove has got away quite well from the second row of the grid as well, and he's side by side with Bill Cowley into the first corner. Collett carries a lot of speed in though, almost too much. 46 Dan Welsh goes a little bit wide through that first turn as well. He's running alongside the 13 car of Rod Hill at the moment, but it is Bill Cowley that is ahead at the moment. He's leading Ollie Collett. They've got a good lead already over Peter Bove in third place. They head down towards Tower Corner for the first time, and it's Collett that's trying to outbrake Bill Cowley going into Tower Corner, and I think he's just about done it. Yes, he has. So Ollie Collett goes through to lead the race.
Well, I was about to say that Bill Cowley's disadvantage is straight line speed, but he more than makes up for that through the corners and braking zones. But on that occasion, there was nothing that he could do to keep the pole sitter Oliver Collett behind him. Now, though, we're heading into Bill Cowley territory, aren't we, through the high-speed far end of the circuit. It may be a power part of the circuit, but because of the speed you have to carry through the corners, the lightweight and agile Cowley should have an edge. They both twitch, though, and run a bit wide through Sunny, but it looks like the race leader got very sideways there. Oliver Collett ran out onto the grass between Sunny in and Sunny out, did well to hang on to the car, but Bill Cowley not quite on this occasion able to take advantage.
Oh, but he might do yet. He was almost alongside, wins the complex. He dives down the inside into the next part of it, and he goes through. Collett's wide a bit over the grass. He doesn't quite spin as I thought he might do for just a moment. So Bill Cowley gets the lead away. He was not shy about getting alongside Ollie Collett. He's a more experienced driver than Ollie is Bill Cowley, and he certainly was very decisive in going for the lead there. So it's Cowley that's leading by 0.6 of a second from Collett. Peter Bove there in the Derby is third. Mark Glover, the reigning champion, is in fourth. Chris Goff is fifth, and Alex Bagnall in the Ingham, the first of our Class B competitors, is there in sixth place.
Yeah, well, Bill knew that was where his advantage was likely to be, so he had to take advantage of that braking ability of the Cowley, and now he's trying to stretch his legs and pull away here from Oliver Collett. Peter Bove in third position. Into the pit lane, by the way, has come car number 21, Hugh Davis, and I fear that 77, Paul Morris, will follow, and if that's so too, will number 12, Conway Dawes. So at least 2, possibly 3 retirements in the early stages. Race leaders, though, down the back straight. There's a bit of debris there, look, halfway down the back straight. Now, I'm not entirely sure from where that's come, but someone out there is missing a bit of their car, which no doubt will not be helping their performance.
No, it looks a bit like some kind of diffuser or something like that, doesn't it? That's down there. We've got these cars that came into the pit lane and they've just stopped. One of them has stopped in the middle of the live lane, bizarrely, but I think we'll now pull into the side. We're watching number 4, Chris Goff. That stands out, doesn't it? It's the sort of violet-coloured CGR2 Evo, another car designed and built by its owner, a man from Telford. Leaders coming into the complex again. There's the battle for third and fourth place. Peter Bove and Mark Glover. Glover it is that leads the championship coming into this weekend. And there you can see Goff coming through. Here's that battle for third, though, back on screen. So it's Bove from Glover as they make their way along the straight. Glover not really able to close the gap, though, to Peter Bove's Derby as they head down towards Clairvaux.
No, Mark Glover then with the fastest lap of the race as well that time around in fourth position, so he is now starting to apply the pressure to Peter Bove in front of him. There go the leaders through Hawthorne and into the chicane, and then this the fight for third, the orange number 6, the Derby of Peter Bove. But how quick is he in a straight line? Well, quick enough, I think, and there may be yellow flags out there as they have to duck either side of the debris, but I think that Glover is up the inside here, under braking into Tower Corner. It's a bit slippery still down the inside line. Flames spitting out of the side of Glover's car as it was under braking there. The Race Kits Falcon, though, does go through and is into third place, and based on qualified pace, should be able to pull out an advantage.
Yes, in qualifying this morning, Glover did a 1:33.84, Bove did a 1:34.14, so about 0.3 of a second faster was Mark Glover. So they make their way up to Sunny. We've got 9 minutes plus 1 lap of this race left to go. 21 car is just coming into the complex, that's Hugh Davis, so I think he did make it out again, but here's this fight for third place, and Peter Bove looked as if he was going to try and fight back there into the complex, but really he was too far back to try and do so. Then this next group of cars having a very good battle as well. You've got the Ingham going around the outside of Chris Goff, so Alex Bagnall, brilliant move from Bagnall there in the number 111 car, which is being driven by a rotating cast of drivers this season, goes around the outside of the CGR2 Evo and takes 5th place away from him.
Yep, leading Class B as well is Alex Bagnall at the moment, with Rod Hill down in 9th place, his nearest rival. Out onto the straight they go then, and Chris Goff now under pressure from Martin Kemp in the number 42 machine behind. Across the line they go, and Goff having to defend the inside line towards Clairvaux. That will slow him down potentially through the middle part of the corner, and maybe allow the Martin Kemp car to attack through Hawthorne. Carries more speed into the turn, just nowhere really to go through that never-ending right-hander. And so as they go onto the back straight, it then becomes a case of whichever car is the more powerful will probably come to the end of the straight in front. And is that going to be Goff or is it going to be Kemp? It's Goff that seems to be pulling away despite the slipstream for the Kemp car behind. And indeed he will hang on to the place for the time being. Leaders out at the far end of the circuit for the 4th time of asking. The lead gap coming down slightly, I think, on this lap, but Bill Cowley will no doubt still be pushing on to try and keep Oliver Collett, out of range. He's not really succeeding in doing so, though, is he?
If anything, the gap has come down this time, hasn't it? It was 1.14 seconds at the start of the lap. Collett pushing on. There's a green flag in the background, and Peter Bove is the driver that looks like he's gone missing there from the background. Mark Glover was coming through, but maybe there's been a mistake for Peter Bove. We'll try and pick that up in a moment. Well, he's still there, but with a bigger gap, I think, now to Mark Glover than normal. So he may have just run wide or had a half spin or something like that, Peter Bove, but he's still there. There is Alex Bagnall, 111, the first of the Class B cars, just ahead of Chris Goff. Martin Kemp, number 42 in the Race Kits Falcon. He's the man behind the Race Kits Falcon as well, is Martin Kemp. The man that has put this package together. There is the race leader though. The gap was just under a second at the beginning of the lap. Bill Cowley from Ollie Collett. Can Collett, in the remaining 6 minutes plus 1 lap, do anything about the very experienced Bill Cowley?
Look at the way that he closes in a straight line, but then he gets the closest through Tower, because that's at the end of the second of the 2 long straights on the circuit, which both come in the first half of the lap, the main straight and then the back straight towards Tower. From now on, though, it really is more suiting, I think, of the Cowley out in front, and Bill driving the wheels off it as always he does. Collett staying with him a bit better this time through Croft and down it towards Sunny. Can have a go on the inside line. He's having a go. He's going for the race lead, and that's twice now that he's outbraked Bill Cowley. He outbrakes himself a bit though, runs too wide. Cowley back up the inside for the second part of Sunny. They leave each other just enough room, and now on the power, Collett is able to hang on. So twice in this race, Collett has outbraked Bill Cowley for the race lead, but Cowley immediately fights back, and you can see there the excess of speed that he had through the corners. He's able to drive right around the outside and retake first position.
It was like watching an action replay, wasn't it? Exactly the same move as he put on Collett earlier on the race. This time Collett, though, didn't go wide over the grass. Ooh. He almost ran into the back of Cowley there as they came out of the final corner. So right in the toe as they head down towards Clervaux corner. 5 minutes left to go, plus 1 lap in this race. We've had 5 laps of the race already. Best lap of the race so far has gone to Mark Glover, actually in 3rd place, 1:33.24, which is a new lap record, beating the mark set by Robin Gearing a little while ago. So we've got a new lap record. We've got a fine battle for the lead. Mark Glover rather on his own in 3rd place now, but he is catching them, isn't he? The gap down to 2 seconds. It's side by side once again between these two. Collett with his nose in front. Collett is fully in front now at Tower corner. So on the straight, on the brakes for Tower, he was easily able to get past Bill Cowley.
Yeah, Bill thought about fighting back but couldn't do it. Now, we haven't had Collett in front of Cowley at this part of the circuit before, so can he now pull enough of a margin over Bill that by the time they get back to the complex, which arguably suits the Cowley a bit better, will he be able to pull enough of a margin that he's not under threat? We'll find out momentarily, I suppose. There is Mark Glover, who, as you said, is only 2.3 seconds off the race lead now, 2 seconds therefore-ish off the race leaders now, because they've been swapping around. Through Sunny again, Cowley trying to close in. Can't get up the inside into the first part of the complex. It's the second part that he's made the move on in previous laps, not on this occasion. Stays in line. What about the hairpin? He looks to the inside, he thinks about it, he goes for it, and that was a textbook move to make at the hairpin at Croft corner. One of the slowest corners in British motorsport. You've got to really rely on the brakes there, and that is certainly where Cowley has the edge. He's back in front.
He is, with 3.5 minutes of the race left to go, and Collett not as close as he was, is he? He's not even in shot there. He's not too far behind. There he is, just arriving right on cue, and pushing really hard into Clervaux corner as well. Number 31, Oliver Collett, the driver from Tussington, with this rebodied race kits Falcon. Now they're just lapping the number 34 car of Nigel Terry, and that involves Ollie Collett using a little bit more of the circuit than he really wanted to. Over the white line he was briefly, and he's now on the outside of Bill Cowley into Tower corner. Can he go all the way around the outside of him? Yes, he can. So it's really nip and tuck between these two, isn't it? Another great 750 Formula race.
And the more they keep doing this, the closer Mark Glover is going to get. He was 3.2 seconds off the lead that time around, but they've really lost time, partly because of the traffic and partly because of the side-by-side action through Tower. So he's now probably about 2 seconds, I would say, 2.5 maybe, away from the race leader. Through Sunny again. Cowley pushing maybe a bit too hard there. Again, the camber catches you, but he missed the apex definitely through Sunny in. Sunny out is a bit neater. There is Glover, the blue number 1 car in 3rd position. Peter Bowe still running 4th, Chris Goff 5th, and Alex Bagnall in 6th is still leading in Class B. But it really has all been about this fight for the race lead, where Bill Cowley closes on Oliver Collett again through the complex. Now Oliver surely is wise to this move. No, he still doesn't defend, but that possibly is because Cowley wasn't quite as close on that occasion. Out of the final corner they go, but the gap between 2nd and 3rd is the one that I'm really interested in here, because with 2 minutes 20 plus 1 lap left on the clock, the leaders continue to hold each other up, and what was a 3.2 second deficit for Mark Glover is now about, as I think I suspected, 2.5 seconds. We'll wait for the timing screen to update itself properly, but Mark Glover, there we go, look at that, 2.5 seconds back from the race leader. He's definitely catching.
Certainly is, so be very interesting. There's the number 42 cut out of the race. That was Martin Kemp. He was in 7th position, but he's ground to a halt there, and the car stopped on the short circuit link, which isn't really used these days, was used occasionally back in the days of Eurocar and that kind of thing. Leaders about to go past that part of the circuit now on their way to the Jim Clark S's, and then up through towards Barcroft they will go. 2.5 seconds between first and third, and no real signs that Glover's eaten much more into that gap on this lap. We've got one into the pits as well, Andy. Hugh
Davis, for the second time, unfortunately, is pit lane bound after unknown mechanical issues earlier on that forced him into the pit lane. Mark Glover there in third place doesn't seem to have had a particularly good lap on this occasion, and so he's fallen a bit further away from the leading two, who are closer together this time into the complex. So no doubt Collett will have some defending to do, and Cowley once again launches to the inside into the middle part of the complex, eases Collett onto the grass, gets across to defend into the hairpin. That was another really committed but fair move by Bill Cowley to retake the lead, but now Collett may have the edge in a straight line.
No last lap board this time, so 2 laps to go in this race then. Cowley's just done the best lap of the race as well, a 1:33.19, so he reduces the lap record, but he's going to lose the lead as Collett goes on the inside, goes quite deep into the corner. He still, nevertheless, comes out in front. I didn't think that was going to happen, but Collett in the Race Kits Falcon with this new bodywork, debuted towards the end of last season, leads the way. It's very slippery through the air as well, that I think. It looks really good, and it's probably a little bit more aerodynamic. It's a bigger car as well than is the Cowley Mark IV. So it's still Bill Cowley in second place. He knows there's probably a lap and a half to go, and he probably won't mind too much being second going into the last few corners, I suspect.
Yes, because almost all of his moves, if not absolutely all of them, have been made through the last 3 corners on the lap, and if he can get the lead into the hairpin, he should just be able to stay in front by the time they reach the line, despite the fact that Collett's car is definitely quick enough to draw alongside. I'm not convinced he can get in front by the checkered flag. We'll find out in just over a lap or so, and that is all as long as Cowley can get back within range. Into the pit lane there you saw has gone Alex Bagnall. That's the Class B leader.
So Rod Hill takes over the class lead, and off has gone Collett. Ollie Collett, by the looks of it, has gone off. We can see him just behind the shed there, the marshal's post. Oh, now where is that?
It was Sonny, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, that he's gone off. So Bill Cowley comes through in the lead of this race on his own. So he goes on to the final lap now, and the waiting game looks to have paid off, really, doesn't it, after that off for Ollie Collett when leading the race.
Well, ironically, Cowley was further behind him than ever at that part of the circuit, so he wasn't under quite as much pressure. Perhaps that's because Ollie was really pushing hard to try and escape. I'm not too sure, but he's not yet rejoined either. And so as we go on to the final lap, it looks as though Ollie Collett, unfortunately, may be a non-finisher. Ollie was, 5th in the championship and was searching for his first victory of the year. Bill Cowley, though, not necessarily around for a full season, so it is going to be Mark Glover that is the main beneficiary of this. There he goes now in second place, and Peter Bove, who you can never count out, a good solid point scorer is Peter Bove, and he's now into a podium position.
Yeah, so Peter Bove looking good for what will be his 4th podium finish out of 5 races so far this season. Mark Glover will complete his 100% podium record if he makes it home. But it's Bill Cowley at the moment heading up towards Sunny In for the final time. And now through Sunny Out with quite a comfortable lead, about 5 seconds over Mark Glover, so he doesn't need to push too hard here. Past the yellow flag, so I think Collett is off somewhere around that part of the circuit on the exit of Sunny on the outside of the circuit. But Cowley it is then, the 2017 champion, making his way down towards the hairpin for the final time in this Raceparts 750 Formula Championship race. And it's going to be, as it's turned out, a very comfortable win in round 5 of the championship for Bill Cowley. Mark Glover is going to be that comes home in second place, but that does not really tell the story of the race, because it was a great fight going on between Bill Cowley and Ollie Collett. It was no quarter asked or given in the scrap between those two. We assume that Collett's incident was all on his own, because Cowley was a little bit further back when we last saw them together. Peter Bove it will be that comes home in 3rd position in car number 6. 4th place will be a little while yet before we see Chris Goff coming through. If indeed, oh, here we do now. He's just coming up to the line. Take 4th place, Chris Goff in the CGR, and Bill Rutter just heading down into the complex now will be 5th. And that man, Rod Hill, number 13 in the Mystic, for the man from Ashby de la Zouch. That's going to be the car that eventually takes 6th position in what has been quite an attritional race for the Raceparts 750 Formula Championship. Dan Welsh will be classified 7th, and Bob Simpson in 8th place, the last classified finisher, which is unusual for Bob. He's not too far behind Dan, though. I can only conclude that Bob's car is not 100% behaving itself this weekend, because Bob is usually much further up the order, and he was certainly on the podium at Mallory Park last time out. But he's just coming out of the final corner now. Dan Welsh it is that's going to take 7th place, and Bob Simpson takes 8th place. Those are the last 2 finishers of this race.
Well, this weekend marks the halfway point of the Raceparts 750 Formula Championship as well. Confirmation of the result first of all. Bill Cowley with the win, Mark Glover 2nd, Peter Bove 3rd, Chris Goff 4th and Bill Rutter 5th. Rod Hill wins in Class B, and with it takes the Class B Championship lead by a single point over Richard Rothery, who is not here. Dan Welsh, Bob Simpson and Nigel Terry round out the finishers. Ollie Collett was out, so to Alex Bagnall from the Class B lead. Martin Kemp and Hugh Davis also failing to finish. So tomorrow's race will be the 6th round of 12 this year, so it's probably not too early to be starting to consider championship points, and it does look like developing into a fight here, doesn't it, between Mark Glover and Peter Bove, and the gap between the two of them now goes out by another 2 points, so 17 points is the advantage. They drop their 2 worst finishes. And actually, for Peter Bove, that is one of his 2 worst finishes, remarkably. He's not been lower than 2nd all year until his 5th place finish at Mallory Park last time out. So a 5th and a 3rd means that he'll be dropping 36 points, which is slightly fewer than Mark Glover. So the gap essentially will tighten, and going into the second half of the season, it looks like those 2 that will contest the title. Bill Cowley, though, former champion, he knows that every point matters. He may not be in for the full season this year, but it's great to have had him here this weekend, and to see that Cowley at work. It always does produce fascinating racing, because it is so much slower than most of the other cars in a straight line, but so much quicker than them through the corners, and Bill drives the wheels off it, and he is now down in the pit lane with Josh Barrett.
Thanks, Andy. Bill, you're 6 months away, but you've come back and won it.
Yeah, it was alright. Lacking in a bit of straight line speed compared to Ollie, and we're lacking in the braking zones as well, but I definitely didn't have the quickest car there, but Ollie just fortunately made a mistake. He had it won, to be fair, apart from in the last sector. That's why I monstered some time back on him. But yeah, I think it's just lack of experience why Ollie made that mistake. He was pushing too hard when he didn't need to. And yeah, well, a good race. I enjoyed it.
You look so quick through the hairpins here, and you managed to get up the inside, I think, every time.
Yeah, well, I thought it's my only opportunity, so I think either way, if there's a gap there, I'm always going to go for it. You boys know that.
Well done, Bill Cowley, race winner. In 2nd place was Mark Glover, gives Bill a handshake. Mark, you tried to close the gap down to the battling 2 in front.
Yeah, they were having quite a nice fight, and it was slowing them down slightly, I think, so it allowed me to catch back up again, but after a bad start, so yeah, well, I was a bit doomed, really.
You got past Peter, I think the 2 of you had a little battle before that.
Yeah, that was very good. I was just annoyed, really, with the start that I made, because I stalled it on the green flag lap as well, which didn't help.
But it's been a good start to the year, I think 3 wins before this weekend.
Yeah, 3 wins, 2 seconds, so I can't complain with that.
Good way to try and defend the title.
Certainly, yeah, fantastic start of the season.
Well done.
Thanks.
And Peter Bove, well done Pete on the podium again.
Yeah, a bit lucky. I don't know what happened with Ollie on the 2nd to last lap, but looks like I kind of inherited 3rd place, but it makes up for the one I lost at Brands Hatch. Not Brands Hatch, but Mallory. So yeah, it was a good race. I couldn't really stay with these guys. So all in all, it was not a bad result, really.
First time the championship's been live streamed. Everybody watching at home, what's the championship all about?
It's a great championship. I mean, we all prepare our own cars. A lot of people have built their own cars. You know, Bill's driving the car that his grandfather built. So it's all a great, it's like a big family, but as you've seen when we get out on track, it's quite competitive, but reasonably well behaved. So.
And as you say, everybody sort of building their own cars. They look all very different, although it's built to the same regulations.
Yeah, and we've always kept the regulations as open as they can be, but we've tried to create a level playing field by standardising the things that make a difference to performance. So.
And I think earlier in the year we had about 20 cars out, so it's still looking very strong, sort of 80 years on.
Yeah, it's as you say, it's what, our 70th season, I think. And we've got people like Bob Simpson who have been racing in the Formula for 51 years, which is absolutely amazing. That's non-stop. But that's the kind of family it is. It's really a great thing, and it's this kind of thing that anyone can really do themselves because it's not massively expensive.
Well done on your third place today. Look forward to more tomorrow.
Thanks very much.
So it's Peter Bove second with Mark Glover and Bill Cowley winning in that car that was built back in the 1960s.